We are on the morning break in the questioning of Noel Douglas, a globalized resistance activist who was spied on by the undercover police officer HN118, who used the cover name Simon Wellings. I'm joined by Amy, who was also a globalized resistance activist from the same time period and was infiltrated by Simon Wellings in the same way. What have you made of the questioning of Noel's had this morning?
It's been a funny morning. I feel a bit sorry that Noel keeps being told he's speaking too fast, but I think it's really impressive just seeing activists trying to remember things from a long time ago in quite a stressful situation. It's quite stressful watching it, really. And the questions have been a bit like you're not quite sure where they're going. It's also really odd, these kind of, because this is like Simon Welling's recollection or what he decided to emphasize, and things that have very little significance in your own memory are gone into like endless detail where you're like, it's quite an odd experience seeing your past in this through this other lens. I think Noel's been doing really well. He's spoken very articulately about things. He's been very clear on the stuff that Simon was making up about the group. And some of those things are genuinely bizarre. This thing about blood-filled balloons, which I remember when I think it was when we were in Genoa. I remember there was some activists who were assaulted by Italian police who were sleeping in a sports centre. And I remember the police using as defence the reason that they were going to go in and be so violent with the protesters was that the protesters had HIV blood. Right, and we were all horribly shocked about it because it was it was a crazy thing to accuse people of, but also like they were really badly beaten up. And the only thing I can think is that Simon must have heard that story. I don't know. It's really weird. I mean, I never remember anyone talking about it. I don't remember it ever being a joke. I'm quite shocked that was something that was said about the group. We did cute things like build a big pink and orange tank, which was slightly hinted that maybe that was used as some kind of cover. I mean, it's bizarre morning. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we get a lot of these questions, which there were repeated questions about violence, about his attitudes to violence, about the group, any use of violence by anybody ever involved with globalized resistance, any protest that he ever witnessed. And I think regular watchers will be used to this dance that sort of happens of like constantly questioning about that. But yeah, there has. I mean, I think Noel's done really well at taking aim and ridiculing the militaristic language that is like so common throughout all of Simon Welling's reports, and is very common through a lot of the undercover police. The idea that somehow, the group was not what it said it was, that secretly it's a paramilitary organization just waiting for an excuse to do some incredibly violent action. There's examples given of supposedly Noel, something which he utterly denies, smuggling a smoke bomb inside the Henry Kissinger papier-mâché puppet to a protest outside Downing Street as part of the Artists Against the War. He's like, I'm pretty sure I wasn't on that demo. I certainly didn't let off a smoke bomb. But even if I had, the language around it is not in keeping with the reality of some smoke being let off at a demonstration. A very common occurrence at, I mean, let's be honest, not just, you give the example of European demonstrations, but I mean, you'll find them at like football celebrations and all sorts of places.
I was on a protest for International Women's Day 3 days ago, and there were smoke flares set off there. It's good for a photo. It might get you in the press if you don't get a lot of coverage. I also don't think I've ever set off a smoke flare, but I don't think if I was taking it on a demonstration, I don't think I would need to construct a large puppet of Henry Kissinger to smuggle in. You just put it in your bag. There was another like really intense detail about how Noel would put posters up between two lampposts. You're like, really? The police, like, it was worth the state spending money for like 4 years for this man to report on such trivial. You could just see how he stuck up a poster in the street. It is it's both kind of banal, infuriating, and like sad.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the report that Simon Wellings kind of commented that like he was kind of like, damn, it's legal. Like shit, he's come up with something he can do that's legal, and
you must report on it.
Yeah, and I mean, we see a lot of these very banal kind of reports. I'm really trying to make things out to be much more than they are. Certainly, we also saw revisiting some of the reports we saw when Guy Taylor was questioned on Monday, which really like blow up the importance of HM118 as an activist within globalized resistance, making himself out to be a leading light, something which, and like again, Noel kind of ridiculed as like he came across as a nice guy, but he never came across as a leader.
I think he came across as a little bit of a creep. I mean, I remember him in the sense that I think I met him in a pub around a May Day protest the first time. I remember him telling me he didn't have a girlfriend and saying that he wanted one. I remember he was significantly older than me. I thought he was a bit creepy. I didn't have a lot to do with Simon generally. I remember him being at protests. I actually don't really remember him being at meetings because he didn't really speak at meetings. So it is amusing, the leading light stuff. And also, I think Guy said yesterday that he didn't buy a drink. I also don't ever remember him buying a drink, but he was buying himself 100 pints a month on taxpayers' money. So that's been an interesting detail that's come out.
Yeah. Many seasoned drinkers who watch the broadcast may think that he was an absolute lightweight during that time period to only limit himself to 100 pints a month. But I mean, it is interesting. I mean, as an undercover officer, he is definitely one of the grey men, as we kind of call them. These undercover officers managed to slip through the majority of their deployment without really causing much in the way of noticing of them. Though, of course, in Sam Welling's case, he was mostly not noticed until he is exposed for talking to police, with something I would imagine we're going to get on to in the next session with Noel, about the way in which the exposure of the recording of him, which he left on an activist's phone when he accidentally rang them as he was giving a debrief to his desk sergeant or to another police officer. Do you remember that incident?
Do you know what? I remember talking to Guy about it. I wasn't at the incident that will be described this afternoon, but I think what's interesting about it, I was talking to some friends about it since Monday. I came down on Monday and thinking that, like, to us, he was completely incompetent at his job. Like, once you find out he's a police spy, you're like, oh yeah, because he didn't really look like an activist. He looked a bit like a nerd. He had very brand new combat trousers that he always ironed. So he didn't really look like a seasoned activist. And actually him being exposed as a police spy, it was like, oh yeah, of course. And then obviously this incident, which absolutely, as Guy said on Monday, people just thought he was giving information. We didn't presume that this man who we'd known for 4 years had been paid by the state for that period of time. That seems still seems completely incomprehensible. But he was really, I think he was bad for the police because he was giving useless information, but he didn't really do much, you know. So you sort of think, but then I was talking to a friend and saying, actually, for him, he was doing brilliantly. He was, you know, he managed to stay employed after he was found out. I mean, he was his career for him as a careerist undercover copper. He seems like he did really well, and he apparently is one of the more prolific coppers because he did like 4,000 reports about nothing. So I mean, it is really weird, this kind of thing, where I just don't think the state got their money's worth, and he did very well out of it.
Yeah, and it feels like you know, the career was always the most important part. We've had some comments just on the now the law is worse, but before they were totally allowed. Yes, especially not before they were banned. I mean, I'm not sure what the context is for those comments, to be honest. Sorry in advance.
Tiny right.
It's tiny right. Yeah. So I mean, just to explain to viewers, I broadcast on like 5 different platforms, which means there's this array of cameras around us at different angles. So some of the comments that come up, particularly on Instagram or TikTok, I don't necessarily always notice them. Yeah, smoke bombs. Oh, about the use of smoke bombs. Ah, yes, the use of smoke bombs. Yeah, thanks for the comment. Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's you know, the conflation of these kind of these things as if they're weapons, as if there's some massive threat to public order. I mean, like, when we do live in a time, which, I mean, we must remember, like, I've just noticed just before we went on air that the Al-Quds demonstration this Sunday has been banned, first time in 47 years. We do live in a time where things are objectively worse. You know, the civil liberties are much heavier clamped down on than the time period we're looking at. Notwithstanding the existence of undercover police officers in our movement, you know, and the fight for protest rights is more important than ever. And I really urge people who are following the undercover police inquiry to get involved in opposing the clampdown on our rights that is currently ongoing. We've only got a short break, and we should be going back in for the next session. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go back in?
No, that's fine. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us. We'll have more from from Noel Douglas this morning. Before going to after the lunch break, we'll be hearing from MT. Now, we're back again. What the problems with the deck? Again, we've had huge problems with the internet at the venue. Hopefully that can be sorted out.